So in today's video, we're going to be looking at the Timco Rally Kronos XTR. Now this is the 2022 edition. It's had a couple of changes and a couple of other updates through the car. So I'm going to get the box out of the way and just show you what this thing's got to offer. So once you get everything out of the box, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see the car fully assembled and pretty much ready to accept your electrics. You're going to get a couple of bodies. One of them is going to be clear, which is this guy here. So this is the same shape as the pre-painted one. So that you can paint to your liking and decorate however you like. This one, as you can see, doesn't have any stickers on it. It still has the protective film on it, so you'll need to peel that off, and of course you can put in as little or as many stickers as you like. There are going to be some window masks here for the clear body, so if you want to mask up your windows. They also give you a couple of baggies here. There is some additional hardware. There's a pinion in here which I'm actually going to use, some body pins, and of course the tethers and the antenna tube. The tethers obviously for the body pins that you see here on this body, and the antenna tube for when you actually put your receiver in there. So we'll pop those out of the way. Then we're also going to be seeing some additional stickers here. So these are the stickers. The red ones are going to be the one for the clear body, and then you've got the orange one, which of course you can also use in the clear body if you want. There's a spare grille here. There's some window stickers if you don't want to mask the car up. But of course, given that the side stickers are already here for the spoiler, you're not going to be able to put that on another spoiler or anything like that, so just keep that in mind. But it's kind of cool that they've actually included a lot of that. And then of course we have the all-important user manual, which will have all the part numbers and exploded views, which I'm sure will be in here at some stage. There we are, with all part numbers and so on and so forth. Now some of these are really small, you're probably not going to see them very well on camera, but all of that information is there. And of course it will have some info on here on how to finish assembling everything, how to maintain your diffs, you can see there, and what you'll need to do to of course complete this build, which is of course just installing the electrics, which shouldn't be too hard. Now I am going to do a separate video on the installation of the electrics. I have kind of mixed this into these videos in the past, but I kind of want to do it separately because I have had people kind of come up to me and leave comments and things like that about how do I install the electrics on these vehicles. So I figured it's a great opportunity to kind of showcase the stand that Timco Rally has sent out for the car, as well as a toolkit that I've got here that I should be using to obviously work on these vehicles, and I'll do a separate video for that, so keep an eye out because I'll probably do that in the next few days. Now when you look at the Kronos XTR 2022 edition, to the untrained eye, this looks exactly the same as last year's version. And this is probably one of the few criticisms that I have about this car, is that I kind of wish that Timco Rally had gone with a different color or perhaps a different pattern or something like that on the car, just so that when we look at it we go, aha, that's the new version. But when you look at it as it is, it looks exactly the same as last year's model. So hopefully next year they'll change out the color or the pattern or do something different, just so that we can identify the cars a little bit better. So it's not until you actually take the body off that you'll start to see that there are some differences between this car and last year's car, and we'll go through some of those changes during this unboxing and features section of the video. So the body itself is very much the same as last year's body. They haven't really changed anything. It feels the same, thickness wise. There's no protective film or anything like that on the inside. It does have that protective film on the outside though, so make sure to peel that off before you put your stickers on. But it is pretty much the same body as last year. Now, as soon as we take that off, of course, you're going to see a couple of differences. Most noticeably is going to be the tower-to-tower brace. Now, this is more of a tower-to-center brace, really, because there are two independent tower braces that join in the middle. We've seen that in the braces that I installed on my Punisher and my Jambo that you see. Oh, you can see the tires of it there, but it's just sitting up here. So the Jambo's got that. And of course the Skeeter, which I unboxed recently as well, that also has the same design brace. And I think that the geometry of having them join in the middle is actually a lot stronger than having a single piece from tower to tower. And I'm pretty sure that Armour proved that with the Kraton 8S. As you guys know, when I did the unboxing and first running video of that car, the brace kind of flexed and then the chassis buckled and it was a bit of a disaster. And of course Armour has since split the brace in two and joined it in that big center tower, and it's been a lot stronger that way. And of course Team Corelli have taken that and done the exact same thing here, and it makes a lot more sense to me because it just feels a lot stronger this way. There's less chance of these braces flexing. Now, there are a couple of other differences on this brace as well. If you haven't seen the way that they fit, of course, you've got a huge support right here in the front. You've also got a couple of other little components here attached to the brace already out of the factory. This is for your switch, and this middle one up here, for those of you that don't know what that's for, it's actually for this guy, which is the Sky RC GNSS Performance Analyzer. So this is designed specifically to house this, and it's very simply just pops in there and just clips into place like that. So that's essentially how that goes in there. Now mine has got a bit of Velcro on the bottom of it because I kind of stick it to the underside of bodies when I do my speed runs, and I also use it in my aircraft when I want to find out how high I've gone and how fast they are and so forth. So it doesn't quite sit in here all that snugly. You can see that there's a little bit of movement because of that. But if you have a look, there's actually some like little ears on these middle tabs just here. And you could probably put like an elastic or a zip tie or something like that going across here, and that stops it from falling out. So if you're going to take this guy out and you want to put your performance analyzer in here, which, you know, these can be a little bit expensive to buy depending on where you are in the world, and you don't want to get that wrecked or lose it or whatever, just put you know, an elastic, wrap it a couple of times around there, or a zip tie or something like that, and away you go. It's not going to fall anywhere. So that's a really cool thing. I would never have guessed Team Corelli to do something like that on these cars, but I think that's actually a really good idea, and it, you know, for what it is, I think a lot of guys will actually appreciate that out there as well. Now, a lot of this car has remained the same. Wheels and tires are the same. You know, body posts, shock towers, battery compartment, chassis braces and so forth. Everything has pretty much stayed the same as last year. Receiver boxes and servo mounts are all pretty much the same as last year's model as well. The chassis is obviously the same as well. They haven't changed anything on that as far as I'm aware. That looks pretty much the same. Front and rear bumpers are exactly the same. A-arms are exactly the same. Drive shafts, sway bars, camber links, toe links, all of these things have remained the same. So what makes this car different? Well, we actually have to look a little bit closer and a little bit deeper to really see what they've actually changed. One of the more noticeable different things that they've changed is actually in the outdrive. You'll see that they're actually a different color. They got this brownish sort of copper type of color going on, and you'll see them in the rear diff here as well. There it is there. And these are actually a spring steel. They're a really hard steel, which is designed to obviously sustain a lot more pressure and a lot more wear. They should last you a lot longer as well. You know, we saw these in the Skeeter as well, had these stock out of the box. So that's a really cool thing to see, because a lot of these times you'll see them as like a hardened steel. But, you know, with these drives, these dog bones that go into these out drives, they eventually start to wear, and they start to put little 90-degree grooves on there, and you end up with this huge amount of slop in the actual dog bone. So between going from brake to forward, the dog bone is basically just slapping and creating these grooves in the out drives, which hopefully shouldn't happen in this car for a very long time. That's the idea behind those. Now, one of the other changes that they've done, and I'll see if I can turn this, is the actual steering knuckles, steering blocks that you see here. I know that some people have had issues with the pillow bowls popping out on these cars. I am yet to experience that, believe it or not. I've broken a lot of things on my cars, unfortunately. I actually broke on my old Kronos XTR, last year's version. I actually broke the outdrive. I broke the cross pin that went in there, and yeah, I didn't pop out a pillow ball, but I broke the actual CVD, which is, even Tim Corelli was amazed. So I don't know, I have a talent for doing things like that sometimes. But yeah, the steering blocks now, they're a much better design. They're a lot beefier as well, and you shouldn't have any issues with the pillow balls popping out. That's not to say that they won't happen. You know, nothing's impossible and nothing's unbreakable, but I think the design that they've gone with now and the way that they've you know, fixed the problem, it shouldn't be an issue. You know, so that's essentially what it comes down to. Now, shocks, they've also changed a couple of things on the shocks. Number one, they've got 4mm pistons, which I think is huge. That's a big difference. So that's going to make the pistons a lot stronger, of course. They've also got beefed up shock rod ends, so they shouldn't break, because if you guys remember my Punisher, I think on the first time out, I actually broke a shock rod end. They have since beefed those up and given them a little bit more thickness, a bit more girth, so they shouldn't break as easy. And they've also stiffened up the springs. So should have a little bit more rebound, and I can definitely feel that there is a bit more rebound, which is more suitable for bashing. And you know, I don't blame Tim Corelli for having softer springs in the past. They wanted the cars to handle well because they come from a racing background, and I hope I'm not talking out of school here, but you know, they wanted the cars to obviously handle a little bit more like a race car, but having that bash ability to them. But of course, people are launching these things really hard. They want harder springs to be able to absorb those big impacts, and having a racy sort of setup on these cars is probably not ideal. Now, some people may not like this, some people would prefer the older style. I think that this is actually a step forward for a bash machine. I think this is actually going to work quite well, but of course they do offer alternative springs, and you can always change it out to something else if you wish. So that pretty much wraps up the features category of this video. I think I've covered pretty much everything that I can think of on this car that Tim Corelli kind of changed from last year. I would have liked to have seen maybe different wheels, just something new, but I think the most sort of noticeable thing is going to be the body. I do wish that they've gone, you know, instead of the orange, maybe they could have gone with a red or a blue or a green or something else, just so that we can look at the car and go, ah, that's the 2022 XTR. So the wish list for this car is actually quite small, and a lot of it is actually cosmetic and revolves around the body, believe it or not. I'm pretty happy with the way that Tim Corelli have been putting these cars together and how they've designed them and how they've beefed them up and everything. At least for my driving style and for the type of punishment that I have done, I am happy with the vehicles as they are. There's really not a lot of criticisms that I'm going to have on this car, to be perfectly honest with you. But there are a couple of things that I kind of wish that they could maybe change in the future. Number one is, of course, body color. So with every year, I kind of hope that they either change out the color or change out the pattern, just so that we can identify those cars when we first glance at them. You know, you turn up at the park, you have this car, someone else has the same car, but it's last year's version. No one's going to be able to tell the difference. And I think that should really be an identity thing. It should be able to identify the cars a little bit better, so you know which one's which. Again, purely cosmetic, very superficial, probably doesn't even matter for a lot of people, but it's something that, you know, that's what the wish list is for. The next thing is, of course, a body tape. Now, I'm referring to the tape that goes underneath the body, just around the you know, the body posts or anywhere where it kind of may be rubbing on the side of the chassis and things like that, just to protect the body from you know, from the paint from rubbing off, I guess, against certain components. I know Armour's been doing this for many years. I'd really like to see Tim Corelli do something similar as well. The other thing regarding the body is also making it slightly thicker. Now, these bodies, they're not thin. They're not made out of paper mache or anything like that, but I would like to see, just in the XTR versions, you know, the ready-to-run's different story, but just in the XTRs, I would like to see a slightly thicker body going forward. If not with the pre-painted ones, maybe with the clear ones. Something that's a little bit different, a little bit stronger, and then you have the choice of, you know, going one or the other. I don't know, it's just ideas. This is what the wish list is all about. Now, the last part, the last thing on my wish list here is actually quite specific, and it's really due to the crash that I had with the Skeeter that's back there. So I'll take the body off and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. When I crashed my Skeeter on the maiden run, right at the end, it went behind the jump. I don't know how it landed. It obviously landed very badly, and you know, I've been able to get away with blind landings in the past, but that one caught me, and I smashed the front end of the Skeeter. I bent the shock tower, broke the aluminium standoff, and yeah, there was a bit of damage there that I had to repair. Now everything's back together and everything's ready to go. There's no issue, but there was one particular component that I think needs to be beefed up a little bit. And again, this is what the wish list is for. And it's this part right here, this little plastic piece that kind of joins onto this alloy little triangular piece. This guy here, when the shock tower bent back, this kind of pushed all the way back. And then when I unscrewed it and everything, this little plastic piece was kind of deformed, and it doesn't sit flush with the shock tower anymore. So it's okay, like it's there and the car's fine, it'll run again, it's not a problem. But I do kind of wish that that piece was a little bit stronger for such occasions, because it is at the front end of the car. It's going to take a bit of abuse from time to time. People are going to smash these things into trees, parked cars, into each other, all these sorts of things. And that little plastic piece, I think, just needs to be a little bit more beefed up. I would prefer to have it in alloy, but of course that may obviously raise costs quite a bit because of machining and so forth. But maybe just beef up the plastic parts a little bit, or even having a, you know, kind of loop over the shock tower, so it kind of, you know, kind of folds over the shock tower, just to give it a little bit more strength here. It's just an idea. It's really quite specific, because I don't know too many people have had this problem, but it's something that I figured I'll put on the wish list just to let the Timco Rally know, hey, maybe it's a one-off, maybe it's something that they shouldn't worry about, maybe it could be a simple fix and they might look at it in the future. Either way, that's it, 4 items on the wish list. Let's move on. And that wraps up this unboxing of the Timco Rally Kronos XTR 2022 edition. As you can see, I've got my Timco Rally toolkit there ready to go. I've got my electronics ready to go into this car. And if you want to see how I go about putting these into the Kronos XTR, be sure to check out the video description down below. I'll have a link in there to that video once I upload it, of course. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Check out the video description for my social pages if you want to follow me on there as well. And of course, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. That is it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you all next time. So let's get the box out of the way and see what's what. That didn't quite work, did it?